Name is Mohamad Aljounde. I'm 20 years old. I live in Malmö. Study there, study international relations. To describe the work that I do easily, I would say I work for the Refugee Rights of Education. We've established an organization 7 years ago, and it's still running that provides education for Syrian refugees in Lebanon. And now we also work with women. My topic is refugees' perceptions of the future. I've really been approached by Lano yesterday, so I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. So take it easy with me, but it's something that I talk about quite often. It's something that I get asked about quite often, especially as a Syrian and it's something that I get asked about quite often, especially in the line of work that I do. So, in a lot of cases, when you're I travel around the world, kind of, and present the work that I do, and also talk about the stories of the refugees that I know. I'm currently actually in France doing that. But when you're doing these things, you always get asked with like, oh, then are you an optimist or are you a pessimist? Especially as a Syrian who went through the war, people all are always interested with this question. Are you an optimist or are you a pessimist? And they always expect an answer, one of these two. But as a refugee myself, I've learned that these binary decisions really limits your understanding of why you do what you do. Why do you become an activist? And one of the most important lessons that I've learned as a refugee is that it doesn't really matter whether you're an optimist or whether you're a pessimist. Why? Well, because being an optimist or a pessimist, it entails that you believe in a future and that you are, in a sense, have an assured image of the future. Whether it's a pessimist, that means you think there's a bad future, or an optimist, which you think is you have a good future. And working with the refugees who lives in the hosting countries like Lebanon, the circumstances around them is enabling them to have a future. Makes it very hard for us to imagine a future for them, for the children of we work with, and for myself when I lived in Lebanon. When I lived in Lebanon, therefore we try to conceptualize a different idea about why do we do our work. Because regardless of us imagining a future, regardless of us believing that we have one in the first place, we continue to do the work we do. We continue to provide education for the refugees. We continue to support them to alleviate themselves from the situation they live in. So we thought to ourselves, why are we doing this? We thought with we start thinking with the children, if why are you still attending the school? Because we always inform them that the children who attend our school is like we cannot make a promise that this will provide a future for you because there's a lot of things that are out of our hands. So we ask the children, why are you guys continuing to come to school if you feel that the future is very unpredictable? The answers that we got and from the thinking that we had, we realized that we really do the work that we do to maximize happiness. And that is a crucial point, and that is the breaking point of my activism and also of the children's activism, because them attending the school as refugee is a form of activism. But what do I mean by maximizing happiness? Maximizing happiness as a motivation for you to do activism is really not linked to the future, and is really you could really control it, and you can really use a lot of tools to be able to do it. Maximizing happiness means that, in a short story, I'll describe what it means. It means that when I first started volunteering in the refugee camp when I was 12, I met some of the young people there my age, and they became the only friends that I had because I was also myself out of school. And we wanted to secure these friendships, so we built a small tent, which later became the school, and then more and more children started coming. So the small happy moments I had with these children, we as children decided to maximize it to reach others. And that's something you can do on a daily basis. That's something that you don't have to think about the future as much. You don't have to think if it will continue to exist. As long as you're happy, and you are making other people happy around you, which in turn they're making other people happy around you, then you're achieving something. And generally, all the tools, all the projects, all the institutions, all the communities that you built on the purpose of maximizing happiness usually works for a better future. Therefore, you're also working towards an optimistic version of the future, but it's not the reason why you are doing the work that you do. And that is very important for us nowadays. I feel like it's a very important idea, and that's why I talk about it a lot, even in Europe, because of the climate change that is happening. Us as a younger generation, and maybe even the younger generation than us, it's very hard for us to imagine a future. There's a lot of talks about climate anxiety, and that is caused by the inability of some younger generation to imagine a future for themselves. And I get this question a lot from European audience of why would we even start our activism journey or start projects if we in 2030 we might all disappear from a climate catastrophe? And my answer is still the same: is uh, generally we're always caught up in the idea that we need a future. We need to know exactly where we're heading for us to start and doing something in the first place. And that is, in many ways, that is a privilege. In many ways it's a privilege to be able to imagine one. As I've said, refugees hasn't been able to imagine one because the circumstances around them enable them to do so, unable them to do so. People who lives in the EU or in Europe, in most cases they live comfortable lives, therefore there's less circumstances that is affecting their future. Now there is with the climate. So the main goal that I think we could take from this talk is to change the conversation we have about why would we start doing activism, why would we start organizing events like this, like the TEDx, why would we start projects, start NGOs. It's not because we're trying to change the world, nor is because we're trying to change the future. It's simply for us to maximize happiness. Because activism, in many ways, it's a very happy place. It creates a very happy community. And by doing so, we are changing the world and we are changing the future. But as long as that's the motivation for us, we are going to be very uncertain of the work that we do. So yeah, I think that would be the principle that I'm here to share today.